Hey, what's going on, champs? I'm Aaron Deliosa. Welcome to an Immigrant's Life podcast, my podcast about immigrants and immigration and everything in between. Thank you for listening and downloading the show, and thank you for supporting my dad.
Welcome back, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. As always, I want to thank you for being here wherever and whenever you are listening to this podcast. Your presence is much appreciated. If you want to listen to some of our previous episodes, we are available wherever you get your podcasts, even on YouTube. So please go ahead and subscribe. And after subscribing, I'd also appreciate if you could leave a review and give us a 5-star rating, as that will enable us to share these incredible stories of these extraordinary individuals with more listeners. And if you want more AIL content, check our social media accounts. Our handle is @AnImmigrant'sLife. That's where you can also contact me together with our email address @AnImmigrant'sLife@yahoo.com. If you got something to say or you just want to have a chat, I'd love to hear from you. House cleaning is done. Now, let's talk about the episode. Champs, we got an incredible guest this week. I'm in GOAT status. I don't want to say anything more except that she could easily be a future Prime Minister of Canada. I'm telling you, she is a badass. And as promised, let's not waste more time. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is a future global political economist. Not only does she represent the next generation, but she also represents the change we strive for today. Everyone, please welcome Divya Sharma.
Hi, Aaron. Hello to everyone listening. Thank you so much for having me. I am very, very honored and very, very privileged to be able to share my story as an immigrant. And just thank you for having me here.
Of course, man. I love that when you reach out, I got excited. I love when people reach out.
No, and my friend recommended this podcast to me, and I remember listening to it, and I just wanted to let you know how much I enjoyed it. I connected with so many stories, even you as an individual. I think you ask the right questions, and the people who share their stories are able to share them in a way where listeners are able to connect. I for sure connect, and I just wanted to let you know how much it meant to me and how meaningful these stories are.
I appreciate that. You're so kind. I'm trying to work on, people giving me compliments. I'm trying to be good at it. But thank you so much. That means so much.
You deserve every bit of it.
Thank you. By the way, who's this friend?
Who's this? Well, I don't know if I can share their name, but they're just a really, really close friend.
right.
They're actually from Kenya. And I actually recently met them. So very, very
Awesome. Well, whatever this person is, shout out to you. I appreciate you. That's the best way to really expand the podcast is really word of mouth,
Exactly.
Before we get into too deep, why don't you tell the Immigrant Nation where they can reach you or if you want to promote anything?
For sure. So I can share my student email. It's shar146@myumanitoba.ca. That's just once again my student email. Please feel free to send me anything, any concerns, questions. I'm always happy to connect. And then my personal Instagram is Divya Sharma X. So that's DIVYASHARMA and then an X.
Why is there an X?
I honestly couldn't find a good username.
That's one thing, my favorite question with guests, with their username, they always have weird usernames. And I always ask, why did you come up with that username?
No, there's a million Divyas in this world. And apparently I'm one of them. And I literally couldn't find any username. So I just put an X at the end. Apparently it's cool to do so anyway. So.
Okay. I guess the Latinx, Filipina X thing.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know about that. I'm just you're Filipino to me. Don't make it complicated to me,
Yeah.
That's for me, obviously. I don't know what your point about that. Speaking of 10 million Divya Sharma out there, I did some research on you. And in your LinkedIn profile, you call yourself executive leader. What does that mean?
So I've actually worked with a couple different, like I would say, organizations, in sort of an executive capacity. So I think the biggest one as of right now would be UMSU, which is the University of Manitoba Student Union. That's something that I recently got elected to. I'm actually getting sworn in tomorrow, which is very, very cool. And
Congratulations.
yeah, and I'll be one of the executives as the vice president of community engagement. And oftentimes, like, I was having this chat with an executive leader. They're the CEO of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce. Their name's Lauren Rimlard, and we were just chatting about how sometimes in bios people will put like woman leader, female leader, and it's like, why do we have to put like female in front of it? Because you're just a leader, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who you are. A leader at the end of the day is a leader.
Yeah, me too. I don't like those things. I don't like why? Can you do the job? Yes or no? Yes? Okay,
Exactly.
boom. Let's go.
Perfect. Yeah, that's honestly my belief too. I think a leader should be defined by their qualities, not by like, you know, I'm a female leader. A leader is a leader. There's no like two sort of senses about it.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like I always have this joke that if I'm willing to open the door for you, you should be willing to open the door for me too.
I
You know.
100% agree with that.
But sometimes I just joke it with my women friends, or sometimes I do it with my wife. Like if she's doing something heavy, like something to carry,
Yeah.
and she calls me, I'm like, "Hey, what happened to feminism? I thought you can you can do the same thing."
Exactly. It's about like equity and equality. And I think as someone who's a female myself, like I firmly believe in that entirety of making sure that, things are in balance. I think it's important. I think feminism has different meanings to different people, but I think it's about equity and equality.
Hmm. But a lot of people are saying that equity is better than equality. Do you agree with that?
I think I would actually, just because equity is more so. So I actually saw this picture, and it's basically just like people are standing outside of like a stadium. Yeah, like you're nodding. I'm sure you've seen it. And there's someone who's really short and someone who's really tall, and then there's someone who can see without standing on anything.
Hmm.
And it's about giving the individual who can't see because of their height that sort of like platform to like look above the stadium. So it's not necessarily like equality, because equality would mean everyone has a platform to stand on, but
Hmm.
or I shouldn't say platform, like a something to stand on to
Yeah.
view the game, but it's about the person who may not be able to see the stadium, and the person who does have the ability to see the stadium without that platform to stand on, they should be able to all see the stadium. I've probably complicated it a lot,
No,
but
it's 100%. I love that. Yes, that meme. Whoever made that meme is so accurate.
exactly.
I love it, and a lot of people, even like on like famous podcasts, I think even Joe Rogan mentioned that certain meme. I'm like, yo, that meme is fire, man.
I know it's incredible, and I think illustrations have such a like strong messaging. I think oftentimes comes across better than words, and that's one of my favorite illustrations of all times.
Yeah, too bad we can't give credit to people that makes meme.
Yeah, I would love to see the artist behind it.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of equity, equality, and all that stuff, I want to ask your opinion about this. People of color versus colored people. Why is it a big deal? I know the history of it. The history is from America, right? Like slavery. But
Mhm.
in Canada, yes, there were slavery, but it didn't really continue as Americans did. Do you think we should just say what we want to say, like colored people or people of color, or does it really matter?
Does it really matter? I think people should be able to self-identify as what they you know best fit into like whatever category they identify with. I think it's actually like a power move to be able to say, yeah, I'm a person of color or a colored person, whatever like you want to identify as. Mainly because back I think this is also important to mention. People think that slavery, like your average American, I learned this in my history class in high school, and this like stat boggles me. People in your average American thinks that slavery lasted like 50 to 100 years. Slavery actually lasted in America for over 500 years. And that like shocks me. Like it's incredible. I think first of all, it's just like it's mind-boggling how people will just see something online and believe it and not do their research. And I think once again, just coming back to the question of like, should people, identify themselves as people of color, colored person, I think it's important to recognize what your history is and where your ancestors came from. And honestly, like I believe slavery is still present in the world today because once again, I learned this in my history class, one of the best classes I took. There's more slaves in the world today than there ever were before. And I think it's important to recognize that oftentimes people of color have been oppressed, if not all the time. And I think it's a power move to be able to say, yeah, I'm a person of color. I'm taking my power back and I'm going to change the narrative and I'm going to recognize what has happened, but I'm going to move forward to make sure that my people are recognized and make sure that we have equity.
100%. Yeah. And ever since the first human came to this world, there's always been slavery. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to stop, to be honest. It's just, it's the nature of the beast. Like a lot of people saying, oh, the white people enslaved the Africans and these people are slave. In my culture, we had slaves. We enslave each other. However, there's a different way for our slavery. For us, you can actually buy yourself out of slavery. That's our thing. That's our Filipino way. This is back before the Spanish came. There were three different kind of slaves, and all of them can buy themselves out of slavery.
Wow. I actually had no idea about this. I need to do my own research.
But yeah, definitely. Why are you so passionate about this topic about representation of immigrants and people of color?
So once again, like I'm a person of color. I am an immigrant. I saw how much effort and how much my parents pushed through in making sure that I had the best opportunity, my family had the best opportunity to have growth here. Honestly, if you're living on Canadian soil and you're not indigenous, you're essentially an immigrant. You have come to a foreign land, or your ancestors have come to a foreign land for a better life, for a better future, for resources. And once again, this can be dated back so far back to the point of colonialism. And we were sort of like not us particularly, but the people that came here who colonized Canada just took the land. Like they just took it. And once again, it's not just Canada that went through this. It's our own countries. Like the Spanish came to the Philippines, the British came to India, and like Latin America was colonized, South America was colonized. Like the British and all these like countries in Europe colonized people of color, colonized a lot of the countries where immigrants came from, and they're still profiting off of the stolen goods. Like the British Museum, there's so many artifacts from like literally all around the world, and they're profiting off of it to this day.
Yeah.
When immigrants push through that and they recognize everything that's happened to them, everything that's happened to our ancestors, and they still are optimistic and they move forward and they come to these countries, they work hard. Like this nation, Canada, and even the United States has been built on the back of like slaves, but also on the back of immigrants. Like we are, like when the Chinese immigrants came here, they were the ones who built the railroads. When all these, and this isn't like a recent thing, like this has been happening for countless years, and we've contributed so much to the Canadian economy. We still do. And I think we deserve that representation, that recognition. And of course, I think there's a huge element of Indigenous reconciliation that comes. And I think that also needs to be recognized, that we are on land that was forcibly taken from Indigenous peoples, and we're on their land. And I think we have a responsibility for reconciliation. I think that it's important to sort of bridge that gap between Indigenous peoples and immigrants, because there's so much in common, like the idea of storytelling, the idea of not having like land ownership. Like Indigenous people don't have this idea of land ownership. They are so focused on sharing and this idea of living together. And I think that's so common within countries where we come from, where our ancestors were surrounded by these ideas. So it's just recognizing that relationship. It's recognizing that we've, as an immigrant community, worked hard, and it's important that we get that representation and recognition.
Yeah, 100%. I like what you said about, our ancestors or even native Canadians that they're so busy like sharing instead of just keeping. And I think I just had a conversation with a friend about this. Like, I think that's where materialism came from, because they're so busy, saving all this whatever material products, while our people are just like, hey, Divya, do you have some sugar? I got some salt. Let's swap. We share, like I think that's where it comes from. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. I think once again, like Indigenous peoples and immigrants, our cultures where we come from are so similar in regards to sharing. Like I'll give an example. So in India, if like during even like festivals and stuff, like I remember going to like our neighbor's house and giving them food. And like we have huge weddings, like massive weddings. We have like 2,000, 3,000 people at weddings. You're inviting like your barber, your neighbor, like your neighbor's uncle or aunt, like whatever. Like people come together and they celebrate together. And it's not just about like, an individual, it's about a community coming together to celebrate. And you'll like, there's a thing called a barat, where basically like people, the couple will like go around the city or wherever it is, like your little uh
Town?
neighborhood
Yeah.
or town, and people will like join in as you're like walking. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, where you celebrate together, you share together. And I'll give it another example of a gurudwara. So when I was younger, I used to that's where my volunteering journey started. With my grandpa, we went to gurudwara, which is a Sikh religious institution. And one of the biggest elements is sitting together and eating, and everyone sits on the floor and eats, and the food is completely free. There's a place in India called the Golden Temple, and it's one of the most sacred spaces there. And it's just, whether you're a king or a queen or you're a peasant, everyone sits on the floor, everyone shares a meal together, and food is unlimited. Like no matter what time of the day you come at, you will get food. And it's just so beautiful. And I remember like very young, I wanted to like give people food. I was like 10, like 9 or 10, or 8 or 9, and there were like these really heavy baskets of like bread, and I like literally like wanted to carry them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just such a beautiful element of our culture and Indigenous culture.
Yeah, it feels so good to give out, like
Exactly.
like sometimes I'm eating, I'm like by myself, I'm like I want someone to eat with me.
Yes.
Even like I don't have much, I want to like, hey, come eat with me, Just share the
Hmm.
food with your friends. I remember when I was new here, I was working in a fast food joint, and the next restaurant, my sister works there. So we took a break together, and we're sitting together, and a friend of mine was, well, a coworker joined us, and
Hmm.
my sister was eating. She was eating French fries or whatever, and I just like went over, like reach over, grab a French fry, and I start eating. And
Yeah.
my coworker, who's Caucasian Canadian, she's like, "Hey, that's so rude of you." I'm like, why? I'm like, that's her food. I'm like, that's my sister. She'll do the same thing to me.
That's hilarious.
But majority of people that that grew up here, they don't have that idea of like sharing your food, like as much as it's not for. I guess for them, like, oh, you need to have boundary, but food is food, man. It's tastes better when you share it.
I fully agree. And honestly, like I think that's such a great part of like Filipino culture because my mom she works at like Canada Life and she has a very big like Filipino team and they have a potluck every Friday. Every single Friday they'll bring in like so much food and they'll like share together and it's just so beautiful and they have a very diverse sort of like company and specifically my mom's team and there's Caucasian people, there's Black people, there's Filipino people, Indian people, and like Filipino people are literally teaching other people to share food, and that's just because this has been happening over such a long period of time. That's their office culture now, and I think that's another thing that immigrants bring to the table where we're like sharing our culture, and I think that multicultural and diversity that we bring and the different lenses and perspectives that we bring are so unique to each of us. And I commend so many Filipino people for like sharing.
Thank you.
I love I don't know what it's called, but it's like they put like plantain and there's like
Lumpia.
that, yes, and it's like given in Europe. I love it. It's so good. It's
That's
so
my
good.
that's like people sometimes call it Shanghai roll. I'm like, yo. 1 minute. Shanghai roll's good, but lumpia is something else.
It's delicious. I
Yeah,
love it.
I take pride in our food. Unfortunately, we're not as famous as Thai food or Vietnamese,
Mhm.
even Indian food. We don't have that person that we could say like, "This is our guy," that would say like, "This food is delicious," because our food is so even our culture. But to go back to our food is we have the Spanish,
Mhm.
the Chinese. We have the Indian cuisine with us. We
Mhm.
have curry and whatever. It's not as good as Indian curry, but it's curry. But yeah,
100%.
I going back to what you said about sharing culture. What's your opinion about cultural appropriation? When does it become appropriation, and when does it become just us sharing culture?
I think that's a really great question. And um I think this is where like boundaries can come in or maybe should come in.
Hmm.
Uh I think there's various aspects to it. Simply if case, so if let's say I have a friend and we're going to like an Indian event, and they're like, so what do I wear, right? And they genuinely want to be involved in the culture and they genuinely want to share that space, that identity. I'm more than happy to be like, hey, this is what you should wear. I actually have a friend. She had her birthday very recently. We're really, really close, and she is so amazed by Indian culture. Like she's so integrated into it, and I love it. And she's Chinese, so we like go back and forth, and we share our culture.
Hmm.
And she loves like traditional clothing, and she learned like the language and everything, and she eats like Indian food. I eat Chinese food. It's like
Hmm.
we share all these things together and I knew she really wanted like this scarf thing. It's called a chuni, and basically it's just like a long scarf, and it can be of different materials. And I really like she really wanted one, so I gave her one for her birthday. And I think she wears it to like the Gurdwara, or like like religious institutions. And I think it's just so beautiful that we're able to exchange that culture.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think that's where it's like cultural appreciation, where you appreciate the culture. Someone gave you something to wear and you're wearing it and you're, rejoicing in that. Cultural appropriation is if you just I'll give a very specific example. There was this time like Coachella where people like full on like like they'll wear elements of like indigenous clothing. And I'm like, what? Like, what is happening? Or they're like, wear like like black braids, and it's just like that's just where the line gets really iffy because of that colonial past. I think if you're someone who wants to, learn about the culture, and you have a friend who, maybe teaches you the right things to wear and the right occasions to wear it to, like something like Coachella, where it's like a music festival, and it's not really the right space to maybe exercise that
Mm.
if you don't belong to a particular culture and you're appropriating that. But if it's, within a respectful means, the time and the place is right, and you have someone to tell you how to wear something, what's appropriate, and you're really like embracing it rather than just having it as like a show off kind of thing, I think that's cultural appreciation rather than cultural appropriation.
Well said, well said. Let's go
Thank
back a little bit with you. Let's talk about you a little bit.
you, for
You
sure.
moved here in Winterpeg, actually,
Winter
specifically,
bag.
when you were 10. What was the reason? Why Winterpeg?
I ask my parents that every day. I know, but in all seriousness, I do love Winnipeg. This place has given me so much opportunity. When Winnipeg is my home, where like we actually just had our first rain today. That was really great. I mean, like we're so close to May. If it snows one more time, I'm actually considering moving to Toronto. So that's that. But I'm fortunate enough to move to Canada with my family when I was about 10. I moved with my mom, my dad, and my brother.
Mm.
And what my parents had told me at the time was that, we're just going there. And I'm like, oh, we're gonna go to like grandma's house. It's kind of like a grandma's house trip where we go for like a week or two, maybe a month at max.
Mm.
So we're here, and a couple of days pass by, blah 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 happens. I kid you not, I cried every single night. It was awful. And I would call so in India, we actually have a joint family where I have like so we live in a big, big, big house. Uh,
Mhm.
I lived with my parents, my brother, my grandma, my grandpa, my uncle, and my aunt. And at
Mm.
that time, they had one kid. Now they have two kids. So we live in like a huge family, first of all. So I'm used to living in this huge family. We come here, there's like I have my cousins here, but it's not the same because you're not living with the same people. But I'm really thankful that at least we had some family here. I know families who had zero, like no one here. So I'm thankful that there was that element. But I kid you not, I cried every night, and I'm closest with my grandpa, so I'm bawling my eyes out every single night, and I go to bed crying. Like it's awful. And I moved here during like July. It was July 18th specifically, so we moved here then. And it was like during the summer, and we went to like the park at like my school at the time. And it was like the summer break, so I hadn't like gone to school per se, but we knew there was a school that I would be going to in September. So we
Mm.
went there, and there was this daycare program. I had no idea what a daycare program was. So I'm on the field, and I see a bunch of kids, right? And as a kid, I'm like, I want to play, blah, blah, blah. So I go up to one of the kids. I'm like, hey, I think you need a partner. Like, can I be your partner? And he goes and tells the teacher, and the teacher's like, are you in daycare? And I'm like, what is that? And then she like explains it to me. I'm like, no. And she's like, sorry, you can't really play with us. And I'm like, what? Like it was the most weirdest foreign concept to me. And I run back and I tell my parents, and it's just like, and then we went on the swings and whatever. But that like it was just such an odd feeling. Like you feel like an outsider, and also everyone has like something like there's these thing called like Timbits where it's like a soccer team like for kids that's I assume sponsored by Tim Hortons, and people had like camping and hockey or whatever, like the sports element. Some people did like gymnastics, ballet, whatever. Like they had their little niche. As
Mm.
a kid, like I had nothing to connect to when I was here. Like I was just, at home crying, talking to my grandma. Like that was what I did. And then when I went to school, like things felt a little bit more normal. But um the reason why we moved here was because there's a couple reasons, but the biggest reason I think for most immigrant families is for better opportunity and better
Mm.
education
Definitely.
and just overall better life.
Hmm. Why Winterpeg though?
Why would it depress? I honestly still have no idea. I think that this is where like my parents got like placed at because there's
Mm,
this whole like program when you're like immigrating and you're applying and all of that. So it actually took them like 2 to 3 years to like get a visa, which was really crazy. Like my mom had to clear like there's like an IELTS program, I believe,
mm,
where you have to like prove that you know enough like English and you know enough about certain subjects. And it's like this really hard exam and you have to score a certain amount. And then you get a certain amount for having a family, you get a certain amount of points
mhm,
for having young kids. And it's just like this entire like point system
mm.
that's it's solely based off of. So I think we got placed here. I'm not like fully sure, but I'm
Yeah.
glad we moved here though.
Dude, I found out about this IELTS exam. I was like, I will never pass that exam. There is no way I'm passing the exam. You have to speak English fluently,
Uh-huh.
properly. I speak English, but I speak like from the streets, you know? Like, I
Yeah.
don't even know
And
what
you know
a.
what's like, you know what the craziest part is? That there's some like Caucasian people who like know less like verbs and like nouns and like all the apostrophe, like all of that than like people who have cleared that test. Like that is proper English. Like it's just like English is so complicated and that's like the most intense version of English. When you come here, it's
Yeah.
not the same.
Yeah. It's like my jokes with my Canadian friend is like when I say something that is, they say, quote unquote, big words.
Yeah.
I will be like, this is your language. You taught us this language. You should know this language. Why am I explaining this to you?
Yeah.
This is your language. But
That's so
but
funny.
no, it's like it's so. I see the point of the test. Of course, they
Yes,
have to know that you can speak English, right?
for
But
sure.
it's ridiculous. Like you have to be you. Apparently, you have to know people's accent, like Australian,
Yeah,
English. I'm like, what the bro?
it's so weird. And also like when I came here, I remember like we did this standardization test in like I was in grade 5 and they did this test where you would like pronounce certain like phonetically you would pronounce like A B C D E and I failed that miserably. Like it was awful. And then they had to explain everything to me and I had to like learn it from like scratch. Like I knew English when I came here because I went to like a private school in India. It was very colonial, but
Mm.
um anyways, when I came here, it was like very different. You had to like learn everything from scratch. But I fully agree with you. I think immigrants have to do a lot more work and learn a lot more English than they
A
should.
lot. It's crazy. Like, why am I learning this thing that the people that invented this word doesn't even know how to say it properly? You know, it's so silly, man.
It
So,
is
so
silly.
you were 10 years old. You're getting to preteen. You know, you have that Indian background. Now you're gonna try to learn to be a Canadian.
Mhm.
How was your experience growing up as a Canadian teenager and then with the complexity of your Indian parents?
Hmm. Wow, you're asking all the right questions. This is why I absolutely love your podcast. Like you ask the questions that like people need answers to.
Appreciate it.
Um, so this is gonna be like the craziest answer ever. So first of all, my parents were rarely ever home. Like they work their ass off. They work so freaking hard. It's insane to me. I will forever be grateful for all their sacrifices.
Mhm.
First of all, like my mom cleared the IELTS test and I'm in shock. She actually scored really, really well. It's shocking to me. Then when she came here, she would work day and night, day and night, like day and night. And my dad would do the same. And they were never home ever.
Mm.
And I don't like blame them for it, but it's like my friends would have their parents home all like my a lot of my Caucasian friends would have their parents home and a lot of
Mm.
like other established immigrants would have their parents home. I
Mm.
didn't have the opportunity to have that for a lot of the time. And once again, I understand that they had to work hard and it's complicated. It's a very like complicated relationship, and I had to take care of my brother. So that was the other piece. So I had to take on a couple of different roles as, like the oldest in the family, the female in the family, and I
Mm.
think that also has its own complexities to it. Um, my parents weren't able to make it to my grade six graduation, and it was very heartbreaking.
Oh my God, I'm
Because
so sorry.
they were literally working, and I still remember the day, and everyone had their parents there, and people were like sitting at the front, like kids were sitting at the front, and I remember like trying to look, and I couldn't see my parents anywhere, and it was so heartbreaking. It was so heartbreaking. But thankfully I had like teachers, and my friends had their parents, so they were able to like share some pictures, and um but they did come to my grade six concert. So I thought that like kind of compensated for it, but they missed my grade six grad.
They did
Um,
not take a day off?
no, I don't think they were able to, or like they were just like I'm like honestly, I don't think they were able to take the day off. So that's that. Um, yeah. And honestly, my dad's a truck driver, and I like so be and I think this is another completely different element to it where um so my mom was a teacher back in India, and when she came here, she had to start working at 7-Eleven.
Mm.
That's insane to me. Like that shocks me. She has a bachelor's degree in
Mm-hmm.
science. She taught for like so many years, like so many years. She's a great teacher. She actually taught me too.
Mm.
I did awful in that class, but that's okay. She it's just like it just shocks me how immigrants aren't matched to their skills, and I think that's still an issue
Mm.
to this day. And my dad actually worked at a laboratory in India. We owned our own laboratory, and he worked there. And when he came here, he started working at like a flour mill, and he used to carry like these really heavy bags of like flour
Oh.
around. And that once again shocks me completely. I am like it blows my mind how we went from living so comfortably in India, and how like my parents abandoned that lifestyle, came here for us, work like below minimum wage jobs, like jobs that they could have like easily gotten, but they could have gone higher level jobs that matched their skill set that they worked hard for.
Mm.
They got their degrees in, that they have experience in, and that's still an issue to this day. Because I worked for the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, and that's still an issue that we continue to explore. Where I worked on like the newcomer employment hub that tries to match newcomers to like just jobs in general, but also like jobs that they should be allowed to have. And I think the government in general needs to just do a better job at this, so that people are able to fit their skill set, and they're able to use their abilities. So yeah, like there were a lot of complexities to coming here. I respect my parents so much, and I have so much this is why I have so much respect for immigrants and international students who like go through all of this, and it's this is why we deserve like representation, and this is why
Mm.
we deserve recognition and respect, because it's amazing.
Yeah, that's one main reason of why I started the podcast. It's
Mm.
because of this story. Your dad, a badass in India, boss, comes here, again, just carrying flour, and
Yeah.
he just took it like a champ, because
Mhm.
he knows it's still better here, and he knows that it's still a chance of giving a better life to you and your brother
Yeah.
and your mom. Amazing teacher, all the credentials. 7-Eleven. Like there's nothing wrong with the job, nothing wrong. But like you
Nothing
said,
wrong.
but
But
like you
it's just like
said, this is like a Ferrari racing against Honda Civic.
exactly. Exactly. It's like I think it's like it's just if someone has experience and they built up like all that work to get to that level, like once again, there's nothing wrong with 7-Eleven job. You know, my mom worked at a 7-Eleven job, my friends worked at 7-Eleven, whatever. It's just like if you work so hard in your life to move up and you have experience, and it's unfair. It's unreasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think can the government do for those kind of immigrants that are well educated and coming here. What do you think? What kind of program do you think we should work for those?
Yeah, I think I've had so many like conversations around this. Um, I I think one of the biggest and the best solutions in my eyes would personally be to have a standardized testing. So this happens sort of with like law specifically, where if if I go to like Oxford, like somewhere just outside of Canada to get my law degree, you'll have to come back and take an examination that allows you to like show that you're able to you know operate in the Canadian system.
Mm.
Um, for if you are, let's say, like a doctor that comes to Canada and you have to retake your entire education and you have to like start from the very, very bottom. And for even for my mom, like when she came here, like she would have to redo everything. Like she would have
That
to
makes sense.
get a different degree. And I think it's so unfair because you're losing that. Now you're investing money in education, you're losing time, you're already like just trying to like get by. You're trying to make a life here, and now you have to take on all these different things.
Mhm.
Um, so the best option at that point is to once again start from the bottom, get a job, start making money right away. And that's what's been happening for so many years. But if we had just, a standardized testing system where people were able to practically show, hey, I'm able to, if they were like working at a laboratory, I'm able to correctly draw blood, administer XYZ, be able to take samples, analyze those samples. Like if I'm able to show you that I'm capable of doing this, I have experience, and this is my proof. And that shouldn't take more than like a set amount of time, even a month, a year maybe, like whatever that duration is. But why do they have to retake everything from scratch? Like that, it just boggles my
It
mind.
doesn't make sense. Yeah. See, I like that. What I like that idea, the standardized test, right? That
Mhm.
can you do the job A, B, C, whatever.
Exactly.
Once you pass, that immigrant will pass. Another thing that didn't exist before to me, before I started the podcast, is the Canadian experience,
Mm-hmm.
which is I get it. I get it that the government, the company says, okay, we don't know if you can do the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you have this test that the government says, no, actually, he can do the job,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would help eliminate this Canadian experience.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
But again, that falls into the discretion of the company if you will actually hire a person that's, from India or from Philippines for whatever, right?
Yes.
Because I actually just had a recently conversation with a family friend about this because she is a supervisor in a company and apparently she's supposed to hire like people of color or immigrants whatever, but she's having problem
Mm-hmm.
because some of them there's some language issues. Some of them they can barely write an email apparently or whatever. I,
Mm-hmm.
I think this beautiful idea of yours, that standardized test that will eliminate this. That okay, you can speak but you can't really write.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. Please do something with this. I'm gonna support this idea. We need this idea.
Thank you. Well, it's also just like it also helps like match people to their skill set. Like if you're able to do certain things and if you're not able, because some people are gonna be better than at certain things than others. And that's that idea, like that whole idea of equity instead of like equality,
Hmm.
where some people are better at some things than others. So you are matched with the thing that you're best at. So we're all able to benefit from each other. That's a basic concept in like economics. And I
Hmm.
think if we're able to use that to our advantage and we're able to work together as a society and allow for immigrants to thrive, then I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, well said. I love that idea. I love it. Let's talk
Thank
about something else. During the pandemic, while some people decided to pick up new hobbies, you instead decided to make care packages for frontline workers, which was recognized by UN Sustainable Development Goals. How did you come up with that idea? I was busy trying to survive, and here you are trying to save the world.
Thank you so much. So basically, it honestly just comes back to this idea of like immigration. The idea just came to me from my dad, and I was 15 at the time. So I was this naive kid. I saw my dad coming back from like a week-long shift and he was exhausted. Everyone's staying home. I was staying home. People were staying home and people were, like literally just trying to survive. And here these frontliners were going to jobs during COVID. Like it was so like an agitated climate like that we were around. And I remember my dad like going out wearing his mask, like coming home, staying in like a specific area, making sure that he doesn't like, infect other people. He would like Lysol wipe clean everything. He was so like, hey, when you come home, wash your hands. I'm gonna watch you do it, blah blah blah. He was very intense on it, but he still went to his job. So I watched him do that, and it was just like, wow, like not everyone can do this. And this was the case with truck drivers, for firefighters, doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, police officers, like all these essential workers that were constantly out while we were staying at home trying to survive and live. And I really like wanted them to know that this was appreciated. So I started off by contacting like local banks, and I'm like, hey, would you be able to provide me with a grant? And I got a couple grants from the Assiniboine Credit Union, and then the Bank of Montreal. They did like some in-branch fundraising.
Wait, sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah.
How did you come up the idea of talking to these banks? I don't like when I did your research. I'm like, this girl is smart. Like, how? I would not even talk to the bank.
It's just like, honestly, I was just I think that's such a beautiful part of being young, and like even not just like young, but like I think this is also very common like immigrants, where it's like we think in such a way where like possibilities are limitless. Like who would have thought that, like my parents just like abandoned literally like this perfect lifestyle and came to Canada. Like what? It's shocking to me. So I feel like it's, as a young person, as someone who's an immigrant, I'm constantly thinking of like ideas that sound crazy to people. Like I've done things that like people are shocked by. And like I'm shocked by what my parents do. I'm shocked by what other immigrants do. And sometimes I shock myself. And through I sort of like this experience, because I was so like involved with student council and all these other, different organizations, I had seen like people not like reaching out to banks, but like reaching out to businesses. And I'm like, I actually reached out to a couple different like businesses, but got rejection, which is fine, because it led me to the right like institutions. Because I actually dropped off letters at like certain stores and
Also,
things.
you did literally wrote letter and then gave it to them.
Yes, and I wrote like letters, and my parents, like, so we would be like going to Superstore, and then I would be like, hey mom and dad, like I'm like I'm gonna go with you, and then I would like drop off letters. And then I did so for like a couple of different organizations, and I sent like follow-up emails and all these different things. Because honestly, like at that point, because everyone was staying at home, there was literally nothing better to do. Like you either watch TV or you do this. And I'm like, how much TV can an individual watch? So
Oh, you better believe they can watch shows after shows after shows after shows.
Okay, this is another thing about me. I don't watch like shows or like movies or anything. It's just like, I don't know, it's like not really my thing.
You read a book?
I do. I love books.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
books. 10 out of 10. I think books are such a great source of like knowledge and stuff. And there's so many books by like immigrants that are like incredible. I will share those later. But back to the topic. So I reached out to like these banks, blah blah blah, and I got donations from the Bank of Montreal, and then Assiniboine Credit Union. And they were like, these were the people that like truly believed in me. I made like phone calls and everything, and talked to bank managers. Like it was crazy. Like this is honestly like what gets me going. Like being
You're
able
incredible.
to
You're incredible. I'm like, I would not even. First of all, I would not even think of this idea. I'd be like, I'm busy eating, making myself fat. Okay. But you're like, no, no, I'm gonna send an email. I'm gonna write an email. I'm gonna go to these people. I'm gonna call them. I'm gonna send email. Like, yo, you're amazing. We need
No,
to clone you like 10 million times.
10 million times. But there's already so many Divya Sharmas.
No, no, like you. Forget about those the other ones. Those the other ones not so good. You know.
Oh, thank you. So anyway, so I like did all of this and honestly like my dad is the biggest inspiration behind this because I saw this happening in my own household and I shared this with, my friends, and I'm fortunate enough to have a group of friends who were very, very supportive, and they shared their own experiences where, their parents are frontline workers. They told me all about it, and I'm like, we delivered like these care packages. There were only a handful of them in the beginning where I gave them to truck drivers, police officers, and doctors, and that was just sort of the beginning. And then I saw this grant opportunity that was like you could get grants for up to $1,500, and
Where
I'm
did
like,
you see the grant? Like, how did you?
honestly, I genuinely, truly, truly believe this. When you want to achieve something and you want it bad enough, opportunities will arise and
Hmm.
you will come across them. Because if you want something and your intentions are in the right place, the opportunity will come knocking at your door and you will take it. And
Hmm.
I think that's so, so important, and I think a lot of immigrants are able to do that, and I think that's why a lot of immigrants are so successful, because if we don't see an opportunity, we'll create one. We'll create,
Definitely.
if there isn't a door, we'll make a door and we'll like push right through it.
Hmm.
And I think this was it for me, where saw that opportunity, I applied for the grant, and the project became so massive. I did it like provincially in Manitoba first, and then and I got such great feedback, and people were like, "This is incredible! Like, you have no idea how much impact this has." And I'm like, "Thanks so much." And then I reached out to do this like program. It was called the Rising Youth, and they basically also gave you a mentor because this was for, youth, right? And I was 15 at the time, and I was handling
You
like,
don't need a mentor. You are the mentor. What are you talking about?
honestly, I am like, I consider myself a mentor now, but at the time, like, I was just like, I was 15. I
Doesn't
was
matter. You're killing it. You're amazing. You don't need a mentor. You don't need
I
anyone to tell you what to do. You are doing the thing
oh
that you need to do.
thank you. So I had a mentor. I'm like, hey, I got like really great feedback. And she helped me so much through the process, where I like, consulted with her. I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. And it like that reassurance I think is really important. And she's an immigrant too.
Okay.
So it's like immigrants supporting immigrants. And it was great. Um so, and I'm like, hey, can I I want to expand this project. And then we did it nationally. I reached out to individuals in every single province and territory, which I think is so crucial.
Wait, how did you reach out?
I reached out to like my connections. I asked my friends,
Okay.
hey, do you have anyone that's living in this province? It was crazy. Like, it was wild. Like, this project is absolutely wild.
You are unstoppable. I mean, you are
Oh,
incredible. Like, to
thank
think those two, like, dude, I'll be like, and you know what? I like helping, but I'm gonna sit down and watch Netflix instead.
you. No.
No,
Well,
you're amazing, man. Like,
thank
that's
you.
amazing for you to do that. Amazing.
Thank you.
Sorry, I keep on cutting you off. Go continue your
It's
story.
fine. It's fine. And and then I'm like, okay, so I have a budget of this amount now. How am I going to divide it up? And then every single province and territory got about $500. And we were able to create 16,000 care packages for frontline workers all across Canada, every
Wow.
single territory and province. It was incredible. And that showed me, and that project alone taught me so much more than what I've learned in school. It taught me the importance of having connections. It taught me the importance of time management. It taught me the importance of working forward, moving forward, and that whole idea of like opportunity. And it
That's
was life
amazing.
changing,
Yeah.
life changing.
I can imagine, man. How did you decide what to put in the care package?
I did I tried doing like healthier items. So I did like pasta sauce and pasta, and then I put in like Kit Kat because
Hmm.
Kit Kat. I put in like lip balm and keychains and all these different things that were also donated. So, but things that were like non-perishable items so that people, because I wanted to do food because I think food's a love language to my heart. Food is also just a universal, like we've talked about food. Food's really important. And I think at that time also grocery prices were going really high. So I'm like, if I can give a care package that accounts for an individual's like meal of the day or something along those lines, I think I made a difference.
So,
And
sorry, go ahead.
I think that's how I decided.
Okay, how about, so you said that you help out in different provinces. How did that work? Like, did you send the money to this person and then that person did the thing?
That's exactly it. Like I reached out to these people, and these were people from like different age groups, identities, blah blah blah, and it was a diverse group of people, like from students to like adults to families to like little programs, and it was like I'm like, this is the amount of grant that you'll be able to receive. Please keep track of like the receipts. This is a blueprint of what I've done. And we also were in some provinces, we were also able to support like local bakeries and just like support local in general. And I thought that was so, so special. And it wasn't just like that one person doing it, like someone took it back to their Rotary Club. I believe this was in Alberta, and they took it back to their school club, and their school club had like 20 people, and they spent like a week of like all their lunches just like assembling the care packages, delivering it. And it's just like it's so amazing to me where people took it. Like it meant so many different things to different people. Families did this, like, and like I can't imagine the impact that it had on those families when they, came together and they delivered these items. Like I've also reached out to someone I believe in Newfoundland, and she was like a graduating like volleyball player, and she like made it to the news as like this local hero, and I'm like, wow, like that was so heartwarming to me. I'm like, that's so incredible.
Wait, wait,
And
did she give you credit?
yeah.
She better.
No, and even if like honestly like all the credit just goes to like the program itself, and just like even the person, like like there were so many people who could have just said no, and they could have just like been like, I don't have the time for it, but it's like these people chose to accept the project, they followed through with it, and that's honestly all I could ask for. And they like, and it's just like they took it so above and beyond to share it with their friends, their families, their connections. It went above and beyond.
So my next question is, when are you gonna run to be a prime minister?
Okay, you will not believe, but I get like asked that question so often.
Hells yeah, we're waiting.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I love politics. I do student politics. And I'm trying in some capacity to make that change. We'll see where that road leads me. Politics is definitely on the table. I think that's one of the biggest ways someone can influence change in policy. But as of right now, I'm focused on just making change in any capacity
You got
possible.
one vote over here. This is
Oh, thank
luck.
you.
And my family. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna put a gun against their head like you better vote.
See, I love this. I love when immigrants support each other.
No,
And this is
that's
why we're so
crazy.
tight. This is why we're so tight.
Yeah, but here's the thing, okay? When I did some research on you, I saw some, interview on TV and whatnot, which is like what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, which is amazing.
Hmm.
But I'm like, from that, I had more questions. And then you
Hmm.
didn't, I wanted to know about the logistics part of like, you had to do all these things? Man, what's up? That's power, bro.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing. So,
Thank
if there's a little girl or a little boy or whatever, what have you, that wants to start something like this, what advice would you give someone that wants to start a program that is something like that, like what you did?
So once again, I think it's very, very important to have, a mentor or someone you can look up to and even just ask questions. I think that's one of the biggest things that helped me. I'm like thankful enough to be a mentor in my own life where I can mentor young kids. And I think that's so like powerful. But it's important to just have like someone who you can bounce ideas off of.
Hmm.
Um, so that's important, but also it's just create opportunity for yourself. There's the like the options and the potential is limitless. It's like you can create anything you want, and I firmly, firmly believe in that. If you once again have the right intentions, the right goal, and if you have a clear vision, you can create anything. And I think it's just looking for opportunities, looking for growth, having someone to like guide you. It can literally be your friend, your parents, just someone who you can just, share with and then move forward. Just problem solve. I think that's one of the biggest skills anyone can have, problem solve.
Beautiful. I read that you dedicate your free time volunteering and helping your community. But what do you do for fun? And don't say that's fun. That's
That is
cool.
fun.
No,
It's fun.
listen, that's cool and everything, but there are the things that are fun.
Okay, okay. Okay. I will say volunteering is very fun. I love volunteering. And I think with volunteering, like I coach, right? And that's my volunteer. I love coaching. Like I absolutely love coaching sports. Basketball is one of my favorite sports. So I'll play basketball, but I'll also coach.
Hmm.
So I love that aspect. I also love reading books, 10 out of 10. I love like, just setting goals. Like if there's a certain thing, like I just want to like get it done as fast as I can. And I think that's fun. Like that's fun to me. I also love cooking. I love like walking. I love just going outside and taking it in. I love hitting the gym. I
You work
that's
out?
I work out.
My
I
girl.
love working out.
Good stuff, man. Man, you are incredible, man.
Aw.
That's amazing. I mean, like, I'm so thankful people like you exist.
I'm
Cause,
thankful people like you exist.
cause, listen, if people like me, all just me, nothing will get done.
But think about this. I reached out to you telling you how amazing your podcast was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you made this happen. Like I never thought I would be on this podcast.
Thank you.
And I never thought I would, be able to share like an immigrant perspective. Like not never share, but like in this capacity. I think that's really special. And I like it's people like you who empower others and who give the platform. And I think that's so important.
You think so?
Yeah. Okay, if you were here, how would I share my story?
I don't know, bro. Hey, you fed people all over Canada. Do you think you cannot do that? Are you crazy?
I think anyone can do that. And honestly, my next project, I'll reach out to you and we'll do something together.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, it's actually one of my project coming up this I believe July. I'm gonna send some money to the Philippines to buy some school products for the kids.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna try because we do it, but I feel like we don't do it consistently enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I also want to have not typically an organization, but something that somehow kind of organization.
hmm
So I'm planning to do that. Like people like you, man, dude, you guys are saints.
thank you. No, I
Amazing.
I help. I try to help as much as I can. Like I mean, this community and like Canada in general has given me so much, and I think it's only fair if I give back. And I think I firmly believe this. I think the more you give back, the more you get back. So it's almost selfish of me to like give back as much as I can because I get back so much.
So it's not the concept of Seva.
It is a cause of you did your research. I love it. I love it.
Tell the listeners what the concept of Seva is.
Yes. Well, I think this is one of the other things that's so integrated within like our culture, where it's like giving back without expecting anything in return. Because I think in so many like cultures around the world, there is a concept of seva, like just giving back in general. I know that in indigenous cultures that's a thing. I know in in India, it's obviously a thing. It's a concept in various religions as well, like Hinduism, Christianity, Islam. I took a religions class recently, and we literally talked about like it's called zakat, and it's basically just like giving back a part of it. And we just like finished Ramadan too, like my friends tell me about it all the time, and there's a specific part of it where you like you actively charitably give back. So I think it's integrated into culture. I know in like even in my religion, in my culture, giving back's important. So I think it's integrated. Once again, the more you give back, the more it comes back. I think it's all a cycle.
Yeah, definitely. But it's so funny because sometimes, really, if you think about it, like giving out is actually a selfish act.
It's so selfish. It's so selfish.
Because when you give out, you're like, oh, I feel good. You know?
Yeah, and like I do it because it makes me feel good about myself.
I try not to do that, but you just can't help it, you know?
Yeah, you feel like a better person. I feel like a changed person.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, simple thing, opening a door for someone, right? Very simple.
Very simple.
But you do it because like, "Oh, I'll feel good."
Yeah, like I open the door.
But is that selfish?
I don't care. I think if you're to some extent, I think like selfish to say you know, but also it's like you're helping someone. At the end of the day, it's that is what counts. If it makes someone else feel better, and if it makes someone's life easier, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, like great example. You coaching the basketball team, right?
Yeah.
I coached the basketball team too a few years
Really
ago. Yeah, I did. 13, 14-year-old kids. So I was
nice.
talking. So I was talking to my friends about it because I'm just talking shit. I said, "Yo, I'm a good person. I volunteer. I'm a coach, whatever, right?" And it's like you're coaching because your son is there. Would you coach if your son is not there? And I said, probably not.
Mm,
But I told to another friend that she said that you still did it. You still volunteered,
mm.
right? You still put your time. And when I coach like I analyze everything.
I think all coaches are like that. Like all coaches are so like brutal and they get so into the game. And I think that's what makes a great coach.
That's one thing I'm so grateful for coaching as kids because when I coach, I was an assistant coach because I wasn't sure. I wanted to learn first, and I was like all about winning. It's
Yeah.
win or
Or
nothing, right?
I would yell at kids. I was like, you're getting like extra mad makers next practice.
And then I told myself, I said, I don't think I like that person. I don't like the version of me. So I did a lot of books. I read a lot of podcasting about coaching, read a
Mm.
lot of researching, even psychology of coaching. The next year, I was the head coach, completely different person. I didn't even care about winning. Like
Wow.
winning was important. Let's not go crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
But the winning is the result of the process. If you push
Yeah.
the focus on the process, whatever happens doesn't matter,
Mm.
you know?
Mm.
And I think coaching is the most teaching someone is one of the best
Mm.
thing
Mm.
that you could ever do. Wouldn't you
Mm.
agree as a coach as well?
100%, absolutely. And I think I need to like read the books that you read because I'm still in the mindset that it's all about winning. Like I get like if I don't, I'm never like I don't know. I don't like the idea of losing, and I'm so like
I
con
hate
like
it too.
I just don't like losing. Like
I
that's
hate losing, but you gotta let it go.
I think I think the ability to like take a no or take a loss is also like something that builds character. And I think it's also important, but winning is important.
Hey, we play to win the game,
We play
right?
to win the game.
But like I said, as soon as I told the kids that, hey, we put our work in the practice, like we work hard, I
Mm-hmm.
promise you, positive things will happen. I'm not
Yeah.
guaranteeing you will win, but
Hmm.
most of the time you will feel good, and that's a win.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
You just have to
Exactly.
let it go.
100%.
You just have to let go. And trust me, even the best coaches, the number one coaches, Phil Jackson, Coach K from Duke,
Mm-hmm.
they all say
Hmm.
the same thing. They don't. Winning is important, but that's not the most important thing.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
the result, right? It's the product of your effort.
Exactly. And honestly, like, if you, I don't think like, I don't think, I think sometimes, yes, like even when you put your hard work into it, you may not yield results right away, but they'll come out in a different avenue in life, or they'll come out at a later time in life. I don't think hard work will ever go to waste. I
Hmm.
think if you try your hardest and things are like your intentions are correct and all, like if things are like correct and you try your hardest, I don't think losing is ever on the table. But even if by some shot you like lose, I don't think that hard work ever goes to waste.
No, never, never. Listen, I think we're there. But before we close out, I just one more question for you.
Hmm.
What is the thing you are proudest of so far the most and why?
Okay. Loaded question. Um, I think I am okay, this is gonna sound so cheesy, but I'm proud of all the immigrants, and I'm proud of people like my parents who took the risk, who I think like I was watching this like little reel, and it's like you almost have to be a little bit crazy to dream about something or envision something that you can't even see,
Mm.
that you can't even like fathom. And I think every immigrant has done that at least once in their life. And I'm proud that I am a part of that community, and I'm proud that I'm able to represent that community, and I'm beyond thankful for literally all the support that I've received. I'm thankful for my parents, I'm thankful for this community, I'm thankful for every single immigrant that's ever felt that.
Beautiful. Listen, Divya, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is such a fun conversation.
I loved it. I loved every part of it. I loved how we connected on it. And once again, thank you for having the avenue and the ability to do this. It makes that much of a difference in an immigrant's life. And this is a conversation that I know I'll always remember.
Amazing. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye. Again, Divya, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron Deliosa for An Immigrant's Life. I'll see you guys later.